You know, oftentimes in your life as a music fan, there are albums that define you. These are the albums that you look back at and you look back upon as the musical works that really shaped you as a music fan. Either that or the albums that really shaped the generation, shaped the world around you. You could almost tell either the hype or the lack of hype, or it was something that really defined a specific element or moment in your life. And Radiohead's OK Computer is really not one that is for me whenever it first was released, although I do remember it very faintly, especially with the lead-off singer, or the lead-off single, should I say, Paranoid Android. I remember watching it at a friend's house for the very first time on MTV back in 1997, and kind of just being taken aback by its majesty and its length, and just the way in which it was able to go in so many different directions and still be one song. Not to mention the music video for it was epic. This was more of a classic album, more of an defining album for a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, and it has slowly but surely leaked its way into my personal philosophy and my personal niche in the music world as definitely one that has changed my life. OK Computer was released in 1997. It was a 12-track affair that was clocking at 53 minutes and 21 seconds long, and it's just a real hallmark and a real majestic album in its real depth and its feel and atmosphere. There's so many different elements and undulations to this particular record that we could talk about this for hours, days, weeks, months. You could examine this for years and still find new things that maybe you didn't think about before, you didn't notice before on the record. Couple things and a couple of notes that I noticed on this particular record from whenever I listened to it throughout these past, it's been 14 years, I will share with you right now. And the first one will be the fact that Airbag, the very first track, the kickoff track, is one of the very first songs that I heard from the band Radiohead, considering I had gotten into alternative music around this particular period, and I really enjoyed this particular track. There was an EP that actually followed up this release called the Airbag EP that has one of my favorite Radiohead instrumentals in it, entitled Meeting in the Aisles. So it's something that always really stood apart for me, or stood out for me, should I say. But there was an influence in there by DJ Shadow, and it was more on the drum beat that's being used within this, and it was something where the band attempted to emanate it by programming a drum beat of their own, but we're doing it in a very kind of learn-as-you-go, do-it-yourself sort of setting with an old Macintosh computer. Paranoid Android, of course, I just mentioned the majesty that that particular song had, and the fact that it was a multi-track format kind of resembled a lot of what I listen to today in progressive metal, where you'll see a lot of songs that have multiple sections to it, usually that are divided. This is a song that's not divided, and it's also Radiohead's second longest song in their career. However, this is not one that really needs to be divided. This is something that needs to be absorbed as a whole, because the whole entire song just has an amazing flow to it, and it consistently will amaze you with how everything sort of just changes. There's a very night and day, yin and yang philosophy to this song that's just absolutely wonderful to listen to, even almost 15 years later. It's something that's only grown in value for me. Exit music for a film was actually, it's a very quiet and haunting song that was used at for the ending credits of the Romeo and Juliet adaptation that happened right around that same time. Now, one thing that I should actually note for you guys that really is unrelated is the fact that I never was a big Romeo and Juliet guy. I figured Leonardo DiCaprio, who I now consider to be one of my favorite actors, he had just done the Titanic, and I was like, well, this is going to be bullshit. I actually really love that adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. They really updated it in a very fitting way. So Radiohead's exit music for a film as the last thing that you hear whenever this movie is scrolling the credits is actually quite fitting, especially whenever you consider the very last line, "We hope that you choke." Track number 6, Karma Police, is probably one of my most favorite Radiohead songs of all time, and this is just has a beautiful and haunting feel to it. The music video for this was very minimalistic. However, it was also just very surreal in its depiction of a man running from a vehicle and then only to turn around and sort of turn the tides, noticing that the vehicle was leaking gasoline, and sets the gasoline on fire, thus setting the car on fire. And this is a song that actually started as a joke. The band had said that the karma police will come and get you if you do something wrong or if you don't do the right thing. Which is kind of crazy how sometimes these songs are able to get their evolution into an actual piece of music or a piece of work. And this is one that I'm definitely glad that they were able to conceive into musical expression because it was done terrifically. Fitter Happier is not really so much of a song as so much as it is a signpost or a banner of all sorts of different slogans that we've all heard throughout our lives. And it's kind of strange. That was exactly what we had become in that particular time frame. Everything was really sloganeering. And of course the very next track is electricianeering, should I say. And sloganeering could easily have been the title of this particular song, but Fitter Happier actually fit a lot better. Not to mention, full-page ads were actually taken out of British newspapers and had Fitter Happier and it's the lyrics and the slogans from it as the ad for this particular album, which is a really unique advertising campaign. It should also be noted that there were many record executives in America at the time that were getting copies of the record in a tape deck, and they were permanently sealed in there where they could not be released. So some very unique and clever marketing for this particular record was done. Climbing Up the Walls, however, is a song that has slowly but surely built and grown upon me as a just absolute big reason why Radiohead throughout the 1990s and throughout their career has always maintained a little piece of real sentimental value for me. And the reason why is because I see and hear this music from Climbing Up the Walls, this really depressing, this haunting, this really fear-inducing atmosphere that they're able to create with this particular song, but yet very powerful feeling. You feel all these different things within this song, and I feel that a lot in a lot of the progressive rock and also in the metal that I hear today. And this is really just one of those life-shaping songs that you can hear and really take a lot out of, or it will just scare the crap out of you. And really, I think the biggest thing was that whenever I listened to this track for the very first time a number of years ago, it's what really cemented this album for me as one of those important albums that you absolutely need to hear before you die. Mainly because at that particular point, your physical feeling and being is altered at this point by this album, and this song just really takes you by surprise, grabs you by the nuts, and scares you to death sometime with just the way in which the composition is able to broodingly haunt upon you. And not to mention the solo that occurs, the very distorted solo near the end of this track is just absolutely... It's like listening to Hell if Hell was a British pop song. Now, contrasted to that is the very next track, No Surprises, which actually sounds as though it's about a couple decades too late. This is a song that sounds more like it should be a single from the Beatles or the Beach Boys, and that's another one of those unique yin-yang dynamics that really is what creates the legendary status of this album, because it's full of these subtle little dynamos that you could really examine and re-examine until you have to get your head examined. And really, you'll never be able to totally wrap your head around everything. I mean, everything is supposed to be listened to in a free-flowing, all-in-one style, in that sort of setting. However, it's sometimes you just see these little subtleties, and you can't help but think to yourself, wow, this is crazy. The last one that really made a mark for me is the song Lucky, which was used for a benefit album. It's about a superhero that was created by a vehicle accident, and the lyrics are actually the real spotlight here. With no surprises, the lyrical spotlight, even though in this happy-go-lucky song, was the governmental change that was happening around that time, which was crazy, and there's just a real feeling of nothing was going to change. No surprises, kind of perfect, fitting way for it to be described. But with Lucky, you really see and hear the lyrics, and it's kind of... You would never expect a hero to come from such an environment. However, that's kind of the subtle amusement to this particular track, for me at least. This is just one of those records that have so many different stories that you can tell, so many conclusions that you can draw, and so many different moments to it that you can just draw out as classic moments of your life. This is an album that, if it doesn't change your life, this is an album that will have at least one moment in there that will really cause a profound impact. And it was responded, the response to this was clear, that it wasn't just a couple of people that agreed about this. OK Computer has been part of numerous lists of albums that you have to hear before you die. Numerous lists about the best albums of the 90s of all time of that particular year. The highest selling. It sold over 2 million copies here in America and over 3 million over in the UK. It's just one of those real albums that sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge for you to get into and dive into and understand. But once you start to have that aha moment with this particular record, let me tell you, it's something that will never ever leave your body. It's a feeling where you will be citing this to other people, and that's the way that it's been for about 14 years. You can sometimes understand why Radiohead fans will back up their band with such a fierce veracity, because this is a band that put out an album that changed their life forever. And while you may not agree or you may not understand the power and the meaning behind it, well, it's something special. This is one of those albums that I never expected to review, and never expected to review in this sort of style and light, where I myself was almost having a revelation about the record itself as I was listening to it again and as I was preparing myself for this review here in Alternative Week 2011. However, I found myself doing that because that's the effect and the profound power. For some people, they were able to get this instantaneously. For me, it took revisiting this album after God knows how long, and it being in existence for almost 14 years, in order for me to have that moment, that almost enlightened scale, where I can 100% determine to you that OK Computer is one of those albums that you definitely need to hear. Because even if you kind of don't have that aha moment like I did or like anybody else did, there might be a moment in there that you have that may even transcend that. This is Cover Killer saying nothing, because the music speaks for itself. That's all that I can say.